Guys, first off, what we're listening to is Morborific, Ominous Seep of Putridity. This isn't on any of in this video because it's only the second time I've heard it, but it probably would have moved its way up, but it's just so much to listen to. So I'm going to go over I have a stack of honorable mentions, or basically stuff that I didn't get enough time to listen to, and over and over and over to make it up on the list. Maybe some of this stuff could have changed, but you know what, we're going like 3 weeks into January, and I've been planning on this video since probably December, once I started watching the top videos. And what happens like every year is I come across something I haven't heard yet, and then I hear it, and then it ends up being good. So I tried to not put stuff that sort of came into my path in December onto the list, but we'll talk about them more individually. So anyway, I'm gonna talk about the stuff that didn't make the list first, and then I'm gonna do the top 10. All right, so first I want to talk about, I got to get used to this setup too. This is a new place for me. Carcass, Torn Arteries. Now, I had heard this when it came out. I had saw a good review, I believe, on Banger TV, and I thought it was okay, not enough to actually purchase it. And let me just say that, excuse me, if I have something in here, I like it. So nothing you'll ever see in my videos I don't like. I don't really do blind buys. But as the year went on, this started popping up on everyone's list, even some people's number one. A guy that does graphic design for my company recommended it, so I got the physical, and I said, you know what, it's Carcass. I like Carcass. You can't really see, but I have a wall flag over here, and I wanted to give it another go. So I've listened to it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I do like it enough to have it on physical, but I don't like it as much as other people do. I think that almost everything else that you'll see in this video is better, and I don't think because these guys have been all around so long that, you know what I mean, like I want to do the albums based on the merits of the albums alone, now not how old or how legendary a band may be. But basically this album's good. It's, definitely not my favorite Carcass. I like Surgical Steel better, but it's good. And I'm just going to say that basically because everybody has it on their list, so I wanted to talk about it. So I'm going to go through some more honorable mentions. I'm going to do this quick because I have a huge stack and I can already see the time. So I have Torture Tomb, and this is Killing to See How It Feels. This is on Transylvania Tapes. And this is good, but I've only heard it 3 or 4 times, so that's why it didn't make it higher on a list. Now these two would have made it, let's see if I can get this better. These two would have made it if I extended it to like a top 15 or top 20. So you have Dungeon Serpent. I don't even know what label this is on, to be honest. I got it through a distro, but Dungeon Serpent is a great one-man old school death metal band that, to be honest, I had this on my shelf and I thought it was a Dungeon Synth album for the longest time, and I didn't listen to it till later, so that was my fault. Devil's Vomit I've had for a while. Again, if this was this is Head Split, right? You're gonna see a lot of Head Split probably on here tape wise. This is Backwoods Redneck Occult, and this would have been up there if the list was a little longer. Now, Rivers of Nile, The Work. This is an album that I didn't discover till other people's end of lists. And I heard a clip of The Void from Which No Sound Escapes. And I just fell in love with that song in the video. And if I had to pick a song of the year, metal, that would be it. And I do like the whole album. I don't like it as much as that song that's kind of like the apex in the middle of the album. but it is long. You get 70 minutes, I believe. It's basically a full CD of music. And I've listened to it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I think it, you know, if I listened to it some more, it probably would have made the top 10. Now, their older stuff, I'm not a fan of. It's this album and just something about the progressiveness of it. I don't even really consider this death metal. I consider it kind of like melodic metalcore, to be honest, which normally isn't my thing. But yeah, good music's good music, and I really like the cover too. So I highly recommend checking that out digitally at least, or watch the video for The Void from Which No Sound Escapes. Here's one I just got from Transylvania Tapes. It's Severus Decrepit Flesh Relic. It's really good, really cool cover. I know there's going to be some crazy glare. There you go. And yeah, it's just something I just got recently, and it would have made it, and it didn't because I just got it. I should have put this at the beginning with Carcass, but this is Hooded Menace's new album. You know, this is another thing where I thought it was kind of okay, not really my thing at the beginning of the year, and it kept getting talked about and talked about. And I will say with this one, the more I listened to it, the more I liked it. It's more melodic. A lot of the melodic parts remind me of Metallica, like the best parts of Metallica, if that makes sense. And I also notice this style, Death Doom, whatever you call it, I have to really be in the mood because I listen to fast stuff all the time. So yeah, I have listened to this a lot. I do like it, and maybe top 20, 25, if I was doing that, it would be on there. But I do like this more than the other ones. So if you like Hooded Menace or you like Death Doom, you probably already know about this anyway, but I wanted to mention it. So I'm not going to talk too much about this because one of my higher up albums is related to this. But I'll just say Ophidium 1. This is Tech Death, which I'm not a huge fan on. There's one other Tech Death album, hint, spoiler, that I liked a lot better than this. And once I heard that, I sort of stopped listening to this as much because I'm just not a huge Tech Death fan to an extent. You know, I don't. But anyway, my point is I really like this. Again, top 20, 25. Probably should have just made a top 25 now that I'm talking about this so much. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to it as much, and when I get to the other Tech Death album, I'll talk a little more. But basically, whenever I have this itch, I go to the other album. So, and this one is strictly just, it is not enough spaces. This is Suffering Hour, the Cyclic Reckoning. This is on Profound Lore. Profound Lore, basically, when it comes to their metal stuff, for me, I don't even really have to listen to it. I could just buy it. They do some more experimental stuff that may not be your thing. But yeah, this is really good, and it just didn't make it up that high. But I have listened to it quite a bit. Cool packaging. Here we go. I think we have a Hell's Headbangers release, which is one of my favorite places. You maybe see some pickups from them. But this is Cadaveric Incubator, Nightmare Necropolis. Again, this just didn't make the top 10, but I wanted to mention it. It's cool cover and layout there. Here's one that I had planned on it being high up on my list. I've had it for a long time, and this is Hexing Clad, Heathen Heart on CDN Records in Canada. And this was I really love that cover too. This is folk inspired black metal, and you know what, I'll probably talk about this in another video. I'm going to do a series about black metal, but it just kind of dropped out for me because there's one element of this album that I'm not a huge fan of. And you know what, I'm gonna do another black metal video where I talk about that. But anyway, I love the album, and it kind of dropped later on in the year. Krypta. This is something I actually haven't had a huge amount of time to listen to, But maybe in November when people started doing their top lists, this popped up on a lot of people's lists. And to be honest, I didn't even know that this was an all-female band until I put the CD in. I was like, hey. But yeah, it's great. There's members of, I forgot the singers from like a all-girl punk band. There's a really good video on, this is Napalm Records videos about them making this album in quarantine. And it's just a really good, straightforward death metal with less guttural vocals and more shrieky kind of like Chuck Schuldiner or Obituary type vocals. Anyway, yeah, I've only been able to listen to it maybe 3 times, so that's pretty much why it's not on the list. Same with this one. This is Worm. I'm going to try to speed up through these. This is Worm Forever Glade. This is number 1 on a lot of people's lists, and I know this album is superior to previous ones that I didn't really get into, and I do like this one, but again, I've only been able to listen to it a few times. Otherwise, it probably would have went higher. And Spirit of Rebellion. This is an album I listened to a ton when it came out. This is PRC Music, but I probably got it through Hell's Headbangers or something like that. And yeah, this is something I listened to a ton whenever I got it months ago, and it's just not higher because I haven't come back to it much. Okay, last recommendate or honorable mention, whatever you want to call it, is Atre Bilis Apex Sapien, whatever. Butchered that. But I'm sure most people know this one, and yeah, it's good. Just haven't had a ton of time. So basically, the moral of the story is most of these recommendations are really good. They were good enough for me to purchase them, and they, you know, I kind of did this list based on how many times I listened to it. And I'm looking at it right now, but basically my top 10 is stuff I've listened to over and over and over again. So let's get into the top 10. We're going to go 10 to 1 and dropping stuff. But it is sort of an order. I tried to make an order for them. Don't put too much stock into them, at least the 10 through 6 at least. Malignant Alter is going to be number 10. And this just made it into the list. I've been listening to this more this week. I've heard some people talking about this. Now, I'm an ex-drummer. I do electronic music, so drums are very important to me. If an album has sort of shoddy drums or recording of drums, I pretty much check out. So this is the opposite of that. A lot of people say that the drums sort of carry the album, which I don't think is fair. I think the album's great. I do think the drums stand out, and this doesn't happen that often, but I think the guitars are actually mixed kind of too low. With the new Cannibal Corpse album, which I completely forgot to pull and mention because I do like it, I feel like the guitars are mixed too loud and the drums weren't mixed loud enough. This sort of has the opposite problem, but it's still amazing, and obviously this crept up on the list because I just started listening to it again. I listened to it a lot when it came out, and I listened to it a lot recently, and it's really good, and I look forward to listening to it some more. Now, let's... wrong pile. Here we go. So now we have Ghost Bath, Self-Loather. Now, Ghost Bath, it's black metal. I don't know what specifically the subgenre of black metal it is. I again, bring this up again, I want to do a series where I'm sort of exploring black metal more because it's something that's not in my wheelhouse usually, but I've been trying to get more into it. So I'm going to do a series about that and hopefully get some recommendations. But I believe there's 3 of the 10 are black metal, 3 or 4. Now Ghost Bath, it's actually a trio of albums, and this is the 3rd one. This came out on Nuclear Blast. Whoop. And I believe initially it was a 1-guy ordeal, but it looks like there's 3 here. But really, I like all 3 as a whole, but this is the one that came out this year. So I'll talk more about the trio. Yeah, but basically, I'm not a huge black metal fan, or at least I'm not as knowledgeable as I want to be. So I'm trying to say that should be a testament that it's on this list. But yeah, I listened to this a lot, and then I went back and got the other 2. And I've been listening to them a lot as well. Yeah, but this is my favorite of the 3. I think it's the heaviest of the 3. It's probably atmospheric black metal, I would say. And then let's go into Oxygen Destroyer. I'm going to read this off of my paper or list. Sinister monstrosity spawned by the unfathomable ignorance of humankind. And I spelled that all wrong on my list. I don't even think, maybe that is showing up. So this is another thing. This and not Oxygen Destroyer, Cadaveric Incubator, kind of, and Spirit of Rebellion, all those kind of I listened to around the same time, and this is the one that made it on. I mean, my initial love for this album was strictly the music. I didn't know too much about the background other than people were talking about this being one of the best releases of the year. And then when I'm listening, so this is where I work, so my stuff's over there, so I usually put it in, and then I'm working here. And I pull up about the band, and I notice it mentioning kaiju, and then I kind of found out that that's this thing, and I think it's really cool, and that kind of bumped it up for me, that the lyrical content, the aesthetic, and everything is all about kaiju. So, anyway, that's what kind of crept it up for me and excited me a little bit more about this album, and I've listened to it plenty. Okay, speaking of black metal, now this is Lamp of Murmur, and the album is Submission and Slavery. Now, I could have pulled a bunch of albums because, to be honest with you, some came out, there's compilations, and basically there's 3 or 4 releases from Lamp of Murmur that I got this year, and I like them all, but this is the only one I'm for sure know came out this year, and I've seen it on a bunch of lists. And this is great black metal, melodic, and it has I don't want to call it gothic. It's not like a Ruins of Bever-esque gothic, which I'm not really a fan of. It really reminds me of Depeche Mode. So it's kind of like a more black metal version. This is going to be a weird comparison. So any fans of Death Heaven, they kind of turned into full like Depeche Mode and then left the black metal out almost completely. This kind of switches back and forth, which sounds kind of lame, but it's not. And look how amazing that logo is, by the way. I should have wore my hat. I actually have a pin of that. That's amazing. Anyway, sometimes you don't have to explain why you like something, or I'm not going to. It's just amazing. I've listened to this thing like 10 times. And like I said, black metal's something I want to like more. So when I find something I like, I gravitate more towards it. So like when I order things off like Hell's Headbangers and you can tell what's black metal, I always give it a listen. And I know like 2 seconds in if I'm going to like it or not. And Lamp of Murmur is just someone, I have splits of theirs, and it's just always good. Oh, another thing, when I first heard them, YouTube showed a clip of them playing live, and their garb, their outfit or whatever, actually looked cool. This band and Portal are 2 bands that, like, if you load a live show of theirs, they actually look how they should, if that makes sense. They don't look hokey or anything like that. So I'm talking way too much about this album, but this is Lamp of Murmur, Submission and Slavery, and that's number 7. And then we're going to keep, I believe this is going to be the last black metal, and this is going to be my favorite black metal album of the year, and this is probably a lot of people's favorite black metal album of the year, and I'm actually going to pull the tape out. It's Spectral Wound, and this has 2 releases, and it's a diabolical thirst. Now, I had ordered this cool double box set. I believe this is Out of Season, which is a Dungeon Synth label that I tend to buy anything cool they release sort of sight unseen sometimes. And this popped up, like, and I knew it was a big drop. You know what I mean? It was something that was going to sell out soon. And I was ordering other stuff. So I ordered it, and then it sold out. And it kind of sat on my shelf a while until about a month or 2 ago, I was going into, I want to find some more black metal. And I went on the like Reddit of all the top 10s, and almost every single list had Spectral Wound, Diabolical Thirst. So I was about to order it, and I said, you know what? I think I may have that. So I looked on my shelf, and it was still sealed. I think it was sealed like that up on that shelf at the top. And, you know, this could be Dungeon Synth. I said, you know what? I have it there. Let me open it. So I played it, and I tell you, I must have listened to this album 3 times immediately. And I couldn't tell you exactly why this works better for me or whatever, because it is, I believe it's more traditional black metal. It's just that good. You know what I mean? Like, people that are into black metal agree it's one of the best black metal albums. And me, someone who's trying to get into it, can also appreciate it. So what I'm trying to say, it's more traditional black metal, which I normally don't gravitate to. I gravitate to more like black metal with something attached to it that I can relate to. Like Black in Death or Atmospheric, sort of like Panopticon, which isn't on this list because I don't have a copy of it. But this is just straight up black metal in the traditional sense, I would say. And it's just amazing. You know, and the more I talk about it, the more it probably should have been higher, but black metal is not my like number 1 choice to go to. It's something I got to be in the mood for. But amazing album. Now we are going to get into the top 5, and sort of the next 4 could be interchangeable except for number 1, which was definitely my number 1. So let's just get into it. Now this one I have 2 copies of. This is, I hate trying to pronounce this name, Sanguizugabog, Tortured Whole. So you guys probably know who this is. Now, at the time, you couldn't get a CD or vinyl. Everything was sold out. And there's no normal tape for this, just this cool, like library-style tape. Like this, which I probably paid too much for. It was like $20 plus shipping. I got it from Days, some punk label. And I loved it so much, I was like, I want a better sounding copy. So I found a CD somewhere, I don't even remember, and it wasn't cheap either. It came with a patch. Anyway, this is gore grind, slam, whatever you want to call it. It's normally something that would have gross, well, there you go, there's sort of some on the cover. And I think this band's shtick is they do get into that whole disgusting territory, but they're like torturing or whatever is against pedophiles. And I know this is sort of a love or hate it, but this album is just fun. It's fun. It's amazing. It's heavy. It's well played. And if you, I'm not huge into gore grind and slam. I could probably do a video. I do have exceptions to that. So the fact that this is of that genre, I have 2 copies of it, and it's number 5 on my list. It should just go to tell you how good this is. So if you like that sort of brutal death metal at all, or even Cannibal Corpse to an extent. Yeah, if you like slam or gore grind at all, this is some of the best there is, in my opinion, ever, probably. And yeah, I've heard this album tons of times, and that's why it's so high up on the list. Okay, number 4. This crept up sort of at the last minute. This is Mortiferum, which is on a lot of people's lists. This is Preserved in Torment on Profound Lore. It's another Profound Lore. I have their previous back there, which I liked, but it sort of kind of blended in with everything else that came out around that time. And I don't remember exactly when this isn't super old, but I got it when it came out, and I believe I listened to it once, liked it. At the time, I thought I liked it about the same as everything else I was listening to, and then I picked it up again later, recently again, and we go back to the drumming. Malignant Alter, we were talking about the drumming. It's sort of the same thing with this. This has got to be the best sounding, people talk about guitar tone all the time. The drum tone on this is amazing. But why this is sort of higher than Malignant Alter is everything is as good as the drums, in my opinion. And yeah, it basically kind of crept up at the last minute, and I know from listening to it a lot lately, like I'm going to end up listening to this today again. This is just something that I'm going to play a ton, and if there isn't a better judge of like how good an album is, you know what I mean? So this is sort of like it crept up because I anticipate listening to it more, and I'm not the only one that appreciates this album. Look at that, it's just... Look at it. It's perfect logo, right? So, yeah. I wish I had more to say about it. Again, it's sort of new to me. I've probably listened to it 4 or 5 times now, but that's probably going to go to 20, you know what I mean, soon. So that's Mortiferum. Okay, so this next album was initially going to be my number 1 album. Like, I had anticipated it being number 1, and I believe this came out in January or February. And let me just mention what it is. It's Frozen Soul, Krypta Vice, and I'll talk about the 2 copies in a minute. This is high up, another thing that's high up in other people's list, and my reason for it being high up has nothing to do with end of year. I actually heard this whenever this album came out. I should have looked it up, but it was earlier in the year, and I heard it on a Spotify playlist before I was buying physical copies again. So I'll talk about it in another video, but I moved recently, and this is where I work in my office, so I listen to music all day while I'm working, which is amazing, and why I'm buying so many physical copies, and I'll talk about that later. But before that, when I was in the mood for like death metal, I would pull up this playlist on Spotify. This was literally the only one at the time that I gravitated, added to my playlist, and listened to it a bunch back then. And I didn't know much about the band except they were from America. I think they're from Texas. And when fast forward, when I moved here, I've been here around 6 months, and I started buying physical copies, they were all sold out, right? And I think Hell's Headbangers or someone had the tape, which is, I don't even know what this is, Epo something, and it's limited to 250. So this was the only copy I could get for a long time. And, and then same thing. I ended up listening to this about 5 more times, and then I liked it, just as much. And then around that time, I started hearing other people talk about it. It kept popping up. Frozen Soul, old school death metal. People always compare them to Bolt Thrower, which, to be honest, outside of when I was a teenager, I have no real knowledge of Bolt Thrower, so I kind of want to go back now and pick up some of their CDs if I can and check them out. But, oh yeah, my point was the CDs starting to pop up. I think I got this off Amazon of all places. And yeah, now that we're at the end of the year, this is popping up on everyone's end of the year for good reason. I consider it old school death metal. It doesn't go in any one direction too much. It's probably slower than death metal I usually prefer. It's probably mid-pace. It's not doom or anything like that. And it's just solid in the middle, meaning it's not too fast, not too slow, not too guttural, not too crazy with the lyrics. But that's probably the most standout part is the lyrics and the singing. You've heard this a million times. This is sing-along death metal, and it's not clean vocals whatsoever. So the fact that it does what it does so well, like I said, this was my number one for a long time, for pretty much a whole year. This is probably the only album on this top 10 that I've been listening to the whole year. So this could easily be my number one. It's not, because the top two I listen to more. Okay, so let's get into that. Now, this album I was considering putting on number one later, and I didn't because there was something you'll see that I listened to more. Now, this is, and I'm sorry if some of these are kind of similar to other people's lists, but sometimes things are talked about for a reason. This is Spire with Bleed the Future. Now, this is a band that I've heard in the past, and when we were talking about tech death with Ophidian 1, this is the other album. So I'm not a huge tech death guy, and obviously Spire is sort of like a purveyor. They carry the torch for tech death, and I've heard their previous stuff, and they're impressive. It just never fit right for me whenever they came out, and maybe I'll go back. It's sort of like Rivers of Nile too. I never really liked the previous stuff, and then when they made the work, it really clicked with me. That's the same thing with this one. And there's a great, again, if you go on YouTube, recently, maybe like 2 weeks ago, they post a whole documentary on how this album came and with COVID, and it makes you kind of appreciate it more. Now, what I think makes this album so special is I think if you say their previous stuff's like 100% technical death metal, whatever, I would say this is kind of like 70% tech death, and then the other 30 is just extreme, in-your-face death metal. And this has got to be the heaviest album on this list. I know that sounds silly because it's a tech death band, which is normally kind of melodic, and this is melodic, but this is in-your-face heavy. It's probably 30 minutes, punches you in the face and gets out. And the vocals, like this guy, he does, you know what, go watch Drone Corpse Aviator, the video, and listen to that. And the singer kind of has like 3 or 4 different modes to his the metal. And one, which is new, if you watch the documentary, you know, it's almost like rapping to an extent. The way how fast it is, like he's almost chugging along with the blast beats and stuff. And yeah, this is just an album you put on, you go all the way through it, you're wowed, and you start it again. And I've listened to this thing probably 20, 30 times already, and I haven't even had it that long, really. Yeah, this isn't something I've sat with all year, and it's just amazing. There's nothing overly wanky about it. Nothing. I mean, obviously it's there, the tech style, but, and like I said, not a huge technical death metal band, but this album is just heavy, and I listen to it almost the most. There's one more I listen to most, which is completely in another direction, but Spire. It's an amazing album. If you like death metal at all, you need to own this album. It's amazing, whether you like tech death or not. Now, my number one probably isn't even an album. I'm sure it's an EP. I mean, we have a bunch of songs on here, but they're short, and the side repeats, and that is Melting Rot, Blood Delusions. Now, what clicked with me? This type of grind, I guess it is, grindcore, or like their punk thrashiness, the tempo and the sort of D-beat drums, whatever it was, this just clicked with me to the point where since discovering this album, I've sort of been going down the grindcore path to find more things like this. And I've been finding cool stuff, but not exactly like this. So I don't know if this is really considered grindcore or just thrash death or whatever. But this is just amazing. It's short. It's two sides. I never put this in without listening to both sides. I will listen to this today. I listen to this probably at least once a day. You know, and to the fact I should probably get it on vinyl or something if I can. And that's Melting Rot Blood Delusions. And this is number one for the fact that this is what I listen to the most out of all of this great music. Is this the best technical album, like even compared to this? No, but this just does it for me. And I've listened to it the most. I think it deserves more recognition because I don't know if you can find another list where this is number one. Let me know. Oh, and another thing, and I should probably make a separate video. If you know any band like this at all, or even similar, let me know, because I'm sure I'll love it. Now, I've rambled long enough. All I'm going to say is I plan on doing more videos like the black metal, the grindcore, and a whole series of Dungeon Synth stuff, which is almost all those tapes up there are all Dungeon Synth. So because I'm at work here, this is my office, I have time to do more videos and stuff. So I just wanted to knock this end of year list, even though it's almost February, because it's just been in my head percolating. I've been watching so many people's videos, Reddit posts, and some of this stuff I wouldn't even know, like Rivers of Nile, and some of this other stuff I just wouldn't have known if it wasn't for these top lists. So I hope that you found something on here you like, and just comment. Really, I don't care about subscriptions or thumbs up or whatever. Just comment and give me some recommendations. If you want to see more about something else, let me know. I may do some pickup videos and stuff like that. Thanks for watching.